Hey there, let me take you back to a moment that changed my life forever. A moment that began in an airport of all places, but ended up being a high-stakes battle against systemic discrimination. I'm Byron Tate, CEO of Naveori Systems, and when I walked up to the Civic Airways counter that day, dressed in my sharpest suit and holding a first-class ticket, I felt like a king. Little did I know I was about to be treated like I didn't belong there at all. It started the moment I approached the desk ready to check in. The woman behind the counter, let's call her Karen, looked up from her screen, eyes narrowing as she scrutinized me, which immediately hit me like a cold splash of water. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice dripping with skepticism, "but can I see some ID?" Like really, I double-checked my own appearance. I was dressed in a tailored suit, carrying a briefcase that cost more than her monthly rent. But here I was about to be questioned in a way I'd never experienced before. I handed her my ID, and to my disbelief, she stared at it like I just handed her a fake. Without saying a word, she called over her supervisor, Bradley, who ambled over, looking more annoyed than concerned. "Can you verify this?" she asked him as if I was some sort of con artist pretending to be someone important. The whole situation escalated quickly. Suddenly, security was coming over, and I felt that familiar flush of humiliation creeping in. I couldn't shake the feeling they saw me not as a CEO, but as a suspect. While they checked my credentials, I stood there, heart racing, as I felt all eyes in the queue behind me boring into my back. A knot formed in my stomach. Instead of spiraling into anger, I took a deep breath. Sure, I could have exploded, but what would that achieve? Here I was dressed for success, yet being treated like I was about to steal a suitcase. So after the panic subsided, I moved into the cramped economy section, replaying those agonizing moments in my mind, feeling smaller than ever. But I wasn't about to let this define me, not today, not ever. I reminded myself about the $3 billion business deal I was headed to seal. Sure, I felt humiliated, but it was time to refocus. I did what I do best, I strategized. I pulled out my phone, texting my assistant for any intel on Civic Airways. Little did I know I was about to dive deep into a rabbit hole. Fast forward a few days, and I eventually closed that deal. Yes, but that's when I discovered something that would shake Civic Airways to its core. Through weeks of digging into company practices and leadership ties, I realized Civic had been using an algorithm for passenger profiling specifically targeting Black and brown travelers. I was stunned, but the more I uncovered, the more I realized this was systemic. Over 300 discrimination complaints quietly settled behind closed doors. It was time to take action. Civic Airways eventually caught wind of what I'd unearthed. Their CEO reached out to me offering a financial settlement, and I almost laughed. I wasn't looking for a quick payday, I was looking for justice. I decided to play a longer game. Thanks to my network, I acquired stock in Civic Airways, securing enough influence to make some serious waves. Now picture this, me suited up in the boardroom of Civic Airways, surrounded by the very leadership that once belittled me. I slid that stack of evidence across the table like a calm storm. "You want to talk accountability?" I started keeping my voice steady. "Let's have that conversation." As I went through the complaints, faces of individuals, stories full of hurt, I could see the color drain from their faces. The tension was palpable, and I knew I was making an impact. Long story short, we applied enough pressure that day, leading to the resignations of 7 board members, including the CEO. Talk about poetic justice. But here comes the twist. As satisfied as I felt watching these so-called leaders crumble, it was time for a little face-to-face. I requested a meeting with my old nemesis Karen and Bradley, the ones who kicked this all off. I could have easily fired them, but instead I chose a different route. When we met, I didn't want retribution. "You two are products of a broken system," I explained, studying their faces. "You either can choose to throw in the towel or you can help me rebuild." I offered them a chance for redemption, to become advocates for change. Instead of being angry, I wanted to inspire a power move that sparked a glint of realization in their eyes. In that moment, I reflected on my journey, an adventure from underestimation to empowerment. Why did I choose this path? Because I realized it's not enough to rise above the system. Sometimes you need to take control of it. And honestly, isn't that what we all should strive for? So I invited you. Have you ever felt underestimated? Have you witnessed a moment where someone rose against the odds? The world is overflowing with stories that need to be shared. Let me know in the comments. What's your take on the fight for justice? And how do we confront bias in our society today? I'm all ears. And remember, always strive for your place in this world because the fight for equity doesn't just start with a single moment. It requires a community willing to engage, challenge, and ultimately bring about real change.